Hello, friends. It's Katie back with another episode of my vlog. And of course, it's time for the Cinema Club Sunday Roundup. We did things a little bit differently this week. We actually inspired ourselves last week when we watched West and Soda. We decided to kind of keep going in the mode of animated films not made in America. So this week we took kind of a fun little trip around the world and checked out animation from a bunch of different countries, mostly France, but some other countries were thrown in the mix as well. We watched 3 different Asterix movies, pretty much scattered throughout the week. So I'm going to talk about all 3 of those together at the end, just because they go together. But meanwhile, what else did we watch this week? What other countries did we visit? Well, you know, we're big anime fans around here, so we knew we had to make a stop off in Japan. And this week we chose Fist of the North Star, the 1986 animated film based on the manga of the same name. But I will note, the Fist of the North Star movie is a little bit different than there was a TV series that they made that was based on the original manga. And the TV series toned down the level of violence that's in the manga just to kind of clean it up for TV a little bit. And then when they went and made the movie, they decided to tone the violence back up. So the violent content in the Fist of the North Star movie matches with the comic. But then the story actually doesn't. They, instead of just telling the story from the manga, what they did was they kind of picked and chose different elements and characters and plot points and then kind of rearranged them and mushed them together to make a movie. So the plot is a little bit strange in the movie, especially if you've read the manga or seen the anime, the TV series. You're going to be like, wait, what? Is this the same story? Because it's not. But I felt like it worked pretty well as just a standalone movie. And I think if you've never read Fist of the North Star, you've never seen the TV show, the movie is pretty accessible in terms of the story, the characters, what's going on. You don't need a ton of background, right? This is a post-apocalyptic story. There's various incredibly super buff guys who are constantly battling each other in these just over-the-top, amazing fight sequences. You know, pretty much what you're watching the movie for. There's various power struggles going on between them. But, you know, that's what it really comes down to, is you just want to see these guys and their insane fighting techniques and how they can destroy each other in these battles. So like I said, this one really ratchets the violence and just like the graphicness level way up compared to the TV show. And it was really, really fun to watch, especially with the kids. Again, they've read the manga and they've seen the TV show, but they had never seen the movie, and they were like, whoa. It's very over the top. It also has really, really great over the top post-apocalyptic fashion, which for me is one of the best parts of any post-apocalyptic story, because, you know, what are you going to do with fashion in the future when it has to act as armor and gang colors and you don't have all the resources that you had before? And heck, now we're in a, you know, fantastic animated world as well. So kind of anything goes. And boy, do these guys have some incredible outfits in this movie. It's kind of like a spiritual predecessor to JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. So if you guys have seen that anime or read that manga, this is like a slightly toned down version of the same thing, but I mean, it's really not toned down at all. Yeah, we had a ton of fun watching this one. And like I said, I think it works for people who are both fans of the source material and people who've never seen the source material. I will note the ending is a little bit strange in this movie, and I was reading in my research that there's actually 2 different endings. So I'm now curious to see what it would be like to watch it with the other ending, because I found the ending we watched the English dub version, and the ending wasn't great for me. It was like, wait, what did they just do at the end of this movie? And of course, I'm not going to say what it was, but I'd be curious to see how the other one ended. I tried to avoid reading what the ending of the other one was, just so in case I ever can watch it, I can enjoy it without spoilers. So that was fun, a fun trip to Japan, or some weird wasteland in that film. And then the next night, we decided to watch the film Kirikou and the Sorceress. This is a 1998 film directed by Michel Ocelot. It is a French-Belgian production, but it's based on traditional West African folktales. It's set in an African setting. There's a little village that's being terrorized by a sorceress. She's dried up the spring where they get their water. She's making the crops not grow, I think, and she's disappearing all the men of the village. So you have a village that only has women and children in it. And the film opens with a pregnant woman who's about to give birth, speaking to the baby that's inside of her body, having conversation with him. And she basically says to him, well, if you're so great that you can talk to me before you're born, you can go ahead and be born by yourself. And basically the first thing you see is this baby crawling out of his mother's womb, sitting up, and then detaching his own umbilical cord, which kind of sets the tone for the whole story. The baby is Kirikou, and he is amazing. He's a brand new newborn, but he can walk, he can talk, he's incredibly smart, and he decides to set out to battle this sorceress and figure out how to save the men of his village, get the spring running again, basically just fix everything. So you get this really sweet, again, it's based on traditional African folk tales, story about this little baby who's very powerful and very clever, going toe-to-toe with a sorceress. And of course, he has a bunch of other adventurous elements in his story as well. The children of the village make up songs about him, and the songs are great, and they'll totally get caught in your head, and you'll be, singing them for days. The evil sorceress has an amazing character design, one of the coolest character designs I think I've ever seen in an animated movie. And she lives outside of town in this hut that is totally filled with, surrounded by, and guarded by these fetish objects that she's created. They kind of move like little robots, but they're based on traditional African fetish dolls, and they are very cool, and they're kind of her army of guys that are helping her. It is a really incredible movie. It's got great animation, really interesting character designs, really cool backgrounds. I really noticed the painted backgrounds in this film. The acting is incredible. All of the voice actors are Senegalese actors. They're speaking in French, but so it has like a hair of colonialism about it because it's made by French people and it's in French. But again, it's all starring African actors based on these traditional African stories. Great African village setting. Now, I will note there's a lot of boobs on display in this movie because these folks don't wear shirts. So you get all different shapes and sizes of animated titties, which is pretty awesome as far as I'm concerned. I like anything that's more realistic or more has kind of like a meat of a slice of life in it, stuck into my animation, no matter how fantastic it is. I kind of love that stuff. And of course, that's how these folks dress. Of course, that leads to problems in countries that have prudish mentalities. So apparently this film was not released in the USA or in the United Kingdom because, oh no, animated titties. Oh, we can't look at that. Whatever. Get over your prudery, America and England. This movie is great. We thoroughly enjoyed it. I want to tell you guys the whole story, but I'm not going to because I really want you to watch this film. Apparently, it's been dubbed into lots of different languages. We thoroughly enjoyed the French language production, the original, which was, I think it was on Amazon, but I'm not positive. It might have been, oh no, we watched it on Criterion. That's where we caught it, but I think you can watch it on Amazon. Anyhow, really, really highly recommend this one. It's just a really charming story and a great package all the way around. Visually, the motifs that they talk about, the themes in the story, again, the music, the backgrounds, just a real winner for me especially. I loved it. Apparently, the same team has made 2 sequels to the original movie. I haven't seen either of those, so I'm interested to check them out, but also, a little hesitant just because sometimes, first out of the gate, that initial movie that people put out will be incredible, and then it's like the sequels will kind of fall flat. But you never know. Sometimes sequels are actually better than the original movie, so I should probably check that out, huh? Have you guys seen Kiriko and the Sorceress? Have you seen any of the sequels? I'm pretty excited to check out the sequels, but like I said, a little bit hesitant. All right, in addition to that, we also ventured into Russia. We watched a Soyuz multi-film, which is pretty interesting to watch. Soviet animation, always a fun one. We watched The Adventures of Buratino, which is a 1959 film directed by, dig this guy's name, Ivan Ivanov Vano. Love it. He is the patriarch of Russian animation. I had never heard his name before, but I watched his film and we had a blast. The Adventures of Buratino is an interesting story. It is loosely based on the adventures of Pinocchio. Apparently, there was a book that was written in, I think, the 1930s in Russia by an author with the last name Tolstoy, but he's not that Tolstoy, but he's probably related to that Tolstoy. And he says that he wrote the story from like his memory of the story of the Adventures of Pinocchio. But The Adventures of Buratino, it's like it borrows a bunch of stuff from Pinocchio, but then it goes in a completely different direction. So you have the Geppetto character, the woodcarver, who makes the puppet, only this time the puppet is Buratino instead of being named Pinocchio. But Buratino gets, he's supposed to go to school. He doesn't go to school. He goes to a puppet show instead. He meets up with a bunch of other puppets. The guy who's the master of the puppet theater is kind of this evil, overarching character who's, you really got to watch out for him. You've got the other puppets at the puppet theater are like traditional Italian Commedia dell'arte characters, which is pretty cool. You get Pierrot and some other guys. I can't remember everyone's name at this point. You've got the cat and the fox from the traditional Pinocchio story who lead Buratino astray. That was kind of an interesting one because the character designs on the cat and the fox were like exactly the same as the ones from the Disney animated version of Pinocchio. But then after kind of the initial stuff that's very, very familiar to you if you've seen Pinocchio or read that book, it just veers off in this other direction where there's a golden key. There's a secret door that has to be found to use the golden key with. And there's a bunch of other things happen, which again, I don't want to ruin any viewing experiences. So if you are curious about kind of an alternate take on the Pinocchio story or sort of a side version of the Pinocchio story, Adventures of Buratino, also called The Golden Key sometimes. Really, really interesting. And apparently this is like a major, major folktale for Russians. There's this 1959 animated movie. There's also like a mid-70s live action, which looks really weird. Buratino does have the same like long nose as Pinocchio does. And in the live action version, you've got the actor wearing like a prosthetic nose, which looks pretty strange. So I haven't seen that one though, but highly recommend this this animated film. It was very interesting to watch, and we all thoroughly enjoyed it. So let's see. I got to look at my notes here. Oh, and that brings us up to Asterix. So are you guys Asterix fans? Of course, I am talking about Asterix the Gaul, the amazing French comic book series. I mean, there's like 40 different Asterix books. Oh, I will note, I read on Wikipedia that The Adventures of Pinocchio is the most translated non-religious text in the world, which is pretty interesting. And so I clicked on the link. I was like, most translated texts in the world, give it to me. And of course, the Bible's at the top. Then there's The Adventures of Pinocchio. Then there's The Little Prince and some other things. I think Alice in Wonderland is in there. But then Asterix comes up really close to the top because that comic book has been translated into like 150 languages or something. So I grew up reading Asterix comics. My kids read Asterix comics. They're timeless. They're incredible. I hope you guys have read Asterix comics. And if you haven't, I thoroughly, thoroughly encourage you to read those comics. They are funny. They are well drawn, great stylizations, and pretty historically accurate for the most part. But of course, the whole thing is kind of a piss take on the ancient world as well. So if you've never heard of Asterix, it is a comic series. It started running in, I think, 1960 or so. The first movie came out in 1967. It's based on The whole thing is set in the year 50 BC during the reign of Julius Caesar. The Roman Empire is spreading out all across Europe, and they've mostly conquered all of France, Gaul, except there's this one little holdout village in northern Gaul that has not succumbed to Roman rule. And of course, this is based on the true story of Vercingetorix, the Gaul. But in the comic book, we have Asterix the Gaul, who is very small stature guy. He's very short, but he is like a very, very powerful warrior because he has a friend named Getafix, who is the druid who brews up a magic potion that Asterix and the other villagers who live in this Gaulish village they drink Getafix's magic potion and they become just unstoppable, unbelievably strong, and they can do any amount of work or any amount of fighting or any amount of anything, just lickety split like a cartoon. You've got other characters that are regulars in the story, but the other notable character is Obelix, who is humongously large, and he is a menhir deliverer, which is a great job. And he's the only guy who's not allowed to drink Getafix's magic potion because Obelix fell into the vat of magic potion as a baby, and that's why he's so big and strong. So he's never allowed to have the magic potion, but Asterix and the other Gauls freely drink of this stuff all the time whenever there's some kind of a problem, usually a problem with the Romans showing up, trying to take over their village or, trick them into doing something else. So the plot of the first film, which is called Asterix the Gaul, is that the Romans are trying to, take over the village and defeat the Gauls. And they know that Getafix has this magic potion and they really, really, really want to drink it. And the Gauls manage to stall them out for a while, but then they eventually have to give the Romans the magic potion. So what they do is they give them the old switcheroo and they give them the wrong magic potion and they give them a amazing hair growth formula. So now these Romans are growing crazy long beards and crazy long hair and it won't stop growing. And they have to figure out how to get the antidote to that from Getafix and solve their whole hairy bearded problem, which is pretty funny. The second Asterix movie is called Asterix and Cleopatra. That one it's kind of interesting. The first movie was made by the publishers of the comic books without any input from the two guys who wrote and illustrated the original comics, which is a huge mistake. And when you compare Asterix the Gaul, the movie, to Asterix and Cleopatra, which came second, Asterix and Cleopatra is so much better than the first movie. And I think it's directly related to the fact that Goscinny and Uderzo, who made the comic, are also involved with making the movie. Don't try to make that movie without them, right? So the second film, the plot loosely is that Cleopatra and Julius Caesar have made a bet with each other about who can build a palace, or can Cleopatra get a crazy Egyptian palace built in some really tiny time frame. And so she hires her, palace builder architect character, and he goes off to his Gaulish friends and says, you guys, I don't know how to build this in time. And of course, Asterix, Obelix, and Getafix are going to help him out using the magic potion. They give the magic potion to all the Egyptians so that they can just build a pyramid, build a palace so fast. Of course, once Caesar sees them working really fast and making lots of progress, he does all kinds of stuff to try and stop them. There's all sorts of trickery, and I'm not going to tell you how it ends, because I don't like to say how it ends. The third Asterix movie that we watched was the 12 Tasks of Asterix, which is loosely based on the 12 Trials of Hercules, where, again, Julius Caesar is kind of making a bet with the Gauls, and he says, okay, I've got 12 tasks, and if you can get all 12 tasks done, I'm going to let you rule Rome. And if you can't get all 12 tasks done, then I get to finally conquer your village and you guys don't give me any more guff. And so, of course, Asterix and Obelix set out with the help of the magic potion from Getafix to go out and do all of these impossible tasks that have been put in front of them. What can I say? We love the Asterix comics. We loved the Asterix movies. I did think the first one was lacking again because it didn't have the two creative powerhouses who actually made the comic behind the movie. The second one, Asterix and Cleopatra, was amazing. It's actually a musical. There's like 3 or 4 different big musical numbers that like the whole cast gets into singing in the film, which is pretty weird, but awesome. And the third one, the 12 Tasks of Asterix, kind of interestingly, it looks very different from the other two because they were using a xerography, say that one 3 times fast, animation technique where they actually photocopy the pencil drawings onto the cells. And it's a way of saving time because you don't have to ink the black lines onto the cells, but the end result is kind of a sketchier looking finished product. I think probably the movie most people know that uses this technique is Disney's 101 Dalmatians. It really stands away from the earlier Disney films as having a much more kind of like rough, sketchy kind of style. Really looks more like pencils than like inks in terms of like the outlines of the characters. So this third Asterix film is done in that style, and it's pretty interesting. I think it works really well. There's a couple parts where the paint that they're using to actually paint in the characters on the cells is like not opaque enough, and that looks really weird when that happens. But other than that, I actually really liked the style of the third movie and how that xerographic process worked to again, inform the visual nature of the actual work and make it feel more like a sketch than like necessarily a finished drawing. I really enjoyed that difference. Even though it seems kind of like lower resolution, if you will, I just liked that there was a difference there. So that was cool. And that is the end of what we watched this week. I think going forward, we are definitely going to be watching some more Asterix movies. The kids just have loved them so much. And like I said, we love the comics. I've never watched any of the live action ones, and I am curious, but they are a bit later. So who knows how that winds up coming out. But I think I'm going to put that live action one that came out with Gerard Depardieu as Obelix on our list because I want to check it out. I'm curious as to what other interpretations of these really fun stories are. So that's it for me this week. What did you guys watch this week? Let me know down in the comments if you have anything cool to recommend for our chapter of Cinema Club. I will be back in a few more days with another episode of my vlog. Until then, everybody, stay safe and take care out there. And thanks so much for watching.